Principles of Business Information Systems. Today we are going to start a new chapter which is about Enterprise Resource Planning Systems. So the title of the chapter is Operational Systems. Now in principles are, an organization must have information systems that support the routine day-to-day activities that occur the normal course of business and help company add value to its products and services. In order to add value to a business and its operations, we need systems or the information systems which could add up value to the overall productivity and the sales of the organization. And in order to handle that, we use enterprise resource planning systems. Traditional transaction processing systems support the various business functions of organizations that have not yet implemented enterprise resource planning systems. Then electronic and mobile commerce allow transactions to be made by the customers with less need for the sales staff, open up new opportunities for conducting the business. So all enterprise resource planning systems are equipped in a way that they have the systems which could help the sales staff and the other departments which can add value combined in order to achieve the strategic goals of the organization. A company that implements an enterprise resource planning system is certainly a highly integrated set of systems which can lead to many business benefits. So that's what we'll be talking about in this chapter. So in order to get the basic understanding of enterprise resource planning systems, they are saying ERP is a set of integrated programs that manage companies' vital business operations for entire or multi-site global organization. So ERPs can be implemented in all major or minor entities of the same business, whether they are operating in the same city, in the same country, or it is globally available. The same enterprise resource planning system can share the information among the systems in order to come up with the integrated sales and the data which is related to the enterprise. ERP systems evolved from the systems called Material Requirement Planning, which was the old name of it, which was MRP, that allowed the companies to plan out how much raw material they would need at a certain time in the future and plan their productions, control, and inventory to manage the purchase process, etc. Now, many organizations has lots of systems that lacked in the integration needed, and in order to coordinate these activities, also they couldn't share the valuable information across different sites or the departments that they had. So they came up with a solution with the help of which, with one solution, they can get all the details about the minor details of the business. And that's exactly what they are explaining in the next slide, which is in 1970, ERP systems evolved from Material Requirement Planning. MRP tied together the production planning, inventory control, and purchasing business functions for multifunction organizations. So it was a single solution in which you have all the things which are related to a business, including production planning, inventory control, purchasing, business functions, manufacturing, etc. Now, the additional benefit of an ERP is that you can implement it as a complete enterprise resource planning system. It would have certain modules for certain things. For example, there would be a module for purchasing, for HR, for marketing, maybe for logistics and all those things. So the companies purchase the kind of modules that they want to use at a specific moment of time. If they want to work only on the HR, they'll purchase the HR module and they'll implement it. The moment they'll implement the supply chain management or the accounting modules, etc., they are very well integrated together so that they can share the information and the entire benefit of the software can be utilized. So since they are using the same database in the back end, it's not a problem for it to share the information among the different platforms because the data is stored in a standard format which all the other modules can easily understand. In 1980s and early 1990s, they recognized that the legacy transaction processing systems lacked the necessary integration for the information systems. Now, the legacy transaction systems are the systems which are old, which cannot be migrated to the new systems, and they are working on a specific operating system, or there are specific requirements for those systems which are not available in the latest systems. So now they found out that with these legacy transaction systems, they cannot be integrated with the latest systems in order to share the information on the internet, etc. So they were looking for a good solution. Now, year 2000 provided the impetus to upgrade the system. So they came up with the system which we are using as the enterprise resource planning systems. Now, there are lots of advantages and disadvantages of enterprise resource planning systems. First of all, it improved the access to the data for operational decision making. So the system can support decision of optimum sourcing or cost accounting, for instance, for the entire enterprise or for the business units, rather than gathering the data from multiple business functions and then trying to coordinate with the information manually or reconcile it with another application. So it is combining everything all together. If you want to collect the information of a specific business unit, or if you want to collect the information of the entire enterprise, it can help you in that. Then it helps in eliminating the cost or inflexible legacy systems. So it helped them to combine all the systems together and migrate their data to the enterprise resource planning systems. Of course, it takes some time to transfer the data from the legacy systems to the enterprise resource planning system, but once it is transferred, it is saved in a standard format that from this onwards, if you want to implement any other system, the data would be readily available in the format which other enterprise resource planning systems also recognize. Now, there is an improvement of work processes based on its best practices. It means that since we know there is competition between different organizations, there was a high need that all the purchase requisitions and purchase orders, etc., are being processed at the fast pace. Now, if a company is dealing with thousands of purchases every month, where they are purchasing lots of items from different vendors, issuing lots of purchase requisitions and then purchase orders, etc., there was a demand that all the purchase orders and the payments are released automatically at a specific time. Just like in most of the organization, the maximum time period of the payment is 30 days. It depends on the country where you are operating, but mostly it is 30 working days. Now, the systems which the companies which have implemented the enterprise resource planning systems, they had automated the process in a way that all the payments are cleared within the 30 days, so that you can have a better customer service and vendor support, etc., and you can improve the overall practices or the overall reputation of the organization in the market. Then we have upgrade of the technology infrastructure. Now, with the enterprise resource planning systems, they had a chance to upgrade the technology infrastructure. Now, if we are talking about technology infrastructure, it could be the computers or the overall systems which they have implemented in order to implement an ERP, just to make sure that the systems are capable enough to handle the applications. On the other hand, it also helped us in integrating artificial intelligence, adding robots, having the sensors, etc., in the production line, which gave us the overall better results of the production lines. Just like before, if humans were working and they were working on 8-hour shifts and then they need to take breaks, etc., they incorporated the robots which were working now for 24 hours a day. On the other hand, in order to control the quality and the production process, they included the sensors or the laser beams through which it is being checked that if the product is exactly as per the specifications or not. So that's how it helped us in the enterprise resource planning system. So we consider all of these things as the advantages of enterprise resource planning systems. Now we have some of the disadvantages of enterprise resource planning systems. Whenever we think of enterprise resource planning system, the first thing that comes to our mind as the disadvantage of it is the expense and the time of the implementation. Since enterprise resource planning systems are quite expensive, first of all, they are costly. Second thing is there is time and expertise required in order to implement the system. And if it's not implemented in its proper sense, it is highly likely that the system would fail or the organization would end up having lots of issues. There is huge sum of money required in order to implement these systems, and then it depends what kind of organization it is. If it's a huge organization, of course it's going to take a lot of time in order to implement the system. The second thing is difficulty to implementing the change, because people usually resist the change in the organization. They think that if a new system is coming, maybe it would jeopardize their job position, so they usually try to resist the change of implementation of enterprise resource planning systems. Then we have difficulty integrating with the other systems. There are lots of work processes and business processes, etc., which are going on through the manual processes. Now they'll have to migrate it according to the enterprise resource planning systems, and in most of the time they had to change the way they were doing business according to ERP systems, so that they can have everything in the system and the information can be shared amongst the legacy systems or amongst the other enterprise resource planning systems of different divisions in the country or globally. Now, sometimes it is straightforward that it can be integrated easily with the other system. Sometimes you'll have to use a third-party software to make sure that the data and information is easily flowing between the application. Then there are some risks in using one vendor. If you want to change the enterprise resource planning system after 4 years or 5 years, it is a bit difficult process in order to migrate the data again from one vendor to another. The second thing is that it requires some expertise in order to do that. Further, if you want to upgrade the same enterprise resource planning system, again, you'll have to spend a lot of money in order to get the latest version of it. Now, there is always a risk of implementation failure, means that it's a very risky process. You'll have to hire a team of professionals in order to make sure that ERP systems are properly implemented and they are working as they are intended to work. Now, you'll have to assign a full-time executive or the manager to look after the project. You might appoint an experienced independent resource to provide the project oversight. You'll have to allow the significant time for the transition. You'll have to plan and spend a lot of time and money in training the people. Then you'll have to define the metrics to assess the project progress. You'll have to keep the scope of the project well defined. And then you'll have to you'll have to be very careful about the ERP software to conform to your system business practices and the best of the implementation strategies in order to implement the system in its true sense. Now we have transaction processing systems. Whenever we think of transaction processing system, the first thing that comes to our mind is it's all about the transactions. For example, order entry, inventory control, payroll, account receivable, account payable, general ledger, etc. So that's what it is talking about, that how it works according to all the operational level things which are on transaction processing systems. Now, TPS or we call them as transaction processing systems, it's a process of detailed data necessary to update the records about the fundamental business operations. So anything which is taking place related to the sales, how much items are there, how much are available in the inventory, what would be the logistics cost and all those things, it covers all those different transactions and the processing of all those systems. Then we'll have to provide the data for the other business processes as well, which with the help of which, if we are making sales, we'll have to have a complete picture of how many items are being sold, what's the revenue being generated, how much money is required to run the processes. All those things are usually being taken care of TPS systems. Now, management information systems and decision support systems helps or integrate with TPS in order to provide information to the higher management in order to take certain decisions. So if we'll talk about transaction processing systems, they are usually working on the operational level. Then we have MIS and DSS, which is decision support systems and management information systems. They work on the tactical level, and the top level that we have for that is usually called an enterprise or executive support systems, which is the strategic level where the head of the departments and the presidents, etc., would be taking the decisions about the business processes, etc. Now we have traditional transaction processing methods and objectives. In that, first of all, we have batch processing systems. Batch processing systems are computerized processing in which business transactions are accumulated over a period of time and prepared for processing as a single unit or batch. Whenever we are talking about batch processing system, it means that the things would be accumulated over a period of time and then they'll be processing the things. Just like the payroll department usually issue the payments of the employees at the end of the month or at the end of the week. That's because they'll have to calculate all the absences, bonuses, and all the other things which are related to an employee, to calculate everything together and then process it at the end of the month. Now, it might be implemented to process the invoices and customer payments for the accounts receivable systems on daily basis. So that would be done on the daily basis by the end of the day. So it would be accumulating everything all together throughout the day, and then it would process it at the end of the day. On the other hand, the payroll system might receive the process data weekly to create the payments, update the employee earnings of records, and distribute the labor costs, etc. And then it would calculate the payments at the end of the month. So we can say in batch processing, the system, there is some delay between an event and the eventual processing of the data related to the transactions and to update the organizational results. Or the records. Now, after that, we have online transaction processing systems, which are computerized processing in which each transaction is processed immediately. It means that there is no delay. As soon as a sale is made, the payment will be processed and the payment would be transferred to the bank. Immediately, you'll get a notification on the screen that you have purchased the item and the purchase has been successful. The item would be dispatched in, for example, 4 to 5 days, etc. There are lots of advantages of OLTP. For example, it processes the data generated by and about the transactions. It maintains the high degree of accuracy and integrity because it is doing it everything at the in the live process. Then it can avoid the processing of the fraudulent transactions. The systems are smart enough to make sure that there are no fraud transactions taking place. It can produce timely and user responses to the reports. It can increase the labor efficiency. It can even improve the customer service. It helps in build and maintain customer loyalty programs so that if a customer is constantly coming, you offer them certain services and discounts or the early announcement for the sales or the promotions which are going to take place, and then it achieves the competitive advantage to the competitors and it gives you an edge in overall market share. Now that's an example of batch processing where all the data is collected from different terminals and the data from the transactions is grouped into a batch periodically and possibly once in a day, and then the output is sent for the batch processing so that we can get an output. And this is an online transaction processing where all the terminals are directly talking to online transaction processing systems. The data is directly updated on the central server and the reports and everything is generated from there. This is just a roundup of all the things that the advantages I told you about organizations that can expect from the transaction processing systems of the processing the data and generated reports, maintain high degree of accuracy, provide the processing of the avoid the processing of the fraudulent transactions, produce timely user responses, increase labor efficiency, help improve the customer service, build and maintain the customer loyalty, and achieve the competitive advantage. Now, transaction processing system activities are: it can capture and process the data that describe the fundamental business transactions. Now, since it's capturing the data and processing the data to have the fundamental business transactions, the fundamental business transactions could be customer loyalty programs, etc., which would increase the overall satisfaction of the customers towards the business. It can have superior service provided to the customers. It can be a better relationship with the customers or the information gathering, and the cost would be dramatically reduced since it is processing everything on time, and it can reduce the inventory level so that we'll buy or maintain the stock as much as it's required at a specific moment of time. It will update the databases at the same time, and it can produce a variety of reports. Now, these are the transaction processing cycle. For example, it is going from data collection to editing, then correction, manipulation, storage, and document production and report. We'll be covering it in a minute. But as you can see, that original data would enter, then the data collection would be there, and data editing. After that, they'll check if the it would divide the data in a good data and a bad data. A bad data is where the information is not correct, so it would send it for correction to the original data. If it's a good data, it would go to data manipulation, from where it would move to data storage, and then the TPS reports or the document production would take place from there. Now, first thing here is data collection, the collection and gathering of the data necessary to complete the processing of the transaction. So if we are buying a product, there is usually a barcode or a barcode scanner, etc., which collects the information of the item. Now, every barcode would have the details of the item, the quantity in stock, the price of it, color, details, and all the necessary things about a product. So that can be collected either manually if the barcode reader is not able to read the barcode. or the QR code on the product. It can be entered manually, or it could be automated via special input devices like scanners, point of sale devices, and terminals. As you can see in most of the stores, if you are buying a product, they are scanning the barcode of it, so instantly it is getting the price details of the product, if it's on discount or not, how many items are available in stock, what's the color, and all those things. So once the item is sold, it would automatically update the database so that you'll have real-time details of the items in stock. Then data should be collected at the source. When they are scanning it, immediately they'll be getting the details about that. It is recorded accurately in a timely fashion, because once the transaction takes place, it would be updated in the main database. Then we have data editing. It's checking the data for the validity and completeness to detect any problems. Since we are avoiding any kind of manual entry, we are scanning it through the scanners, etc. There are less chances of any typing mistakes. So either it would detect it or it won't detect it. If it won't detect it, you'll have to check the reasons behind it. But mostly it is taking the data exactly from the barcode or the QR code. Now the examples could be the quantity and the cost must be numeric so that it can read it easily. The names must be in the alphabetic order. The verification that codes the associated with the individual transactions are present in the database containing the valid code. So if you're scanning it, if it's not able to find anything related to that in the main database, it won't process it, and you'll have to check the proper details of it. That's why whenever we receive the items in the warehouse, all the things or the data is first entered in the database before the actual sales takes place. If that's not done, the persons on the cash counters or on the point of sales, they won't be able to grab the details of the products which are being scanned by these scanners. Then we have data correction. Data correction is re-entering the data that was not typed in or scanned properly. If valid data is detected, system should provide an error message. If an invalid data is detected, the system would give you an error message. Error messages must specify the problem to properly corrections can be made. Usually it says that the barcode not found or the item not found in the database. So then you'll have to check that is there a problem in the barcode of it, or the data is not being entered in the system. Now the software tools can be used to identify the bad data, and then it is sent for the corrections immediately. Then we have data manipulation. Data manipulation is performing the calculations and other data transformations related to the business transactions. It can include classifying the data, sorting the data into categories, performing calculations, summarizing the results, and storing the data in the organization database for future processing, etc. So if we'll take an example of a payroll system, you can see that the data manipulation include multiplying the employee's hours worked by the hourly rate in order to come up with a figure, which is the overtime pay, and the tax deductions are also calculated, so that once it's calculated, whatever you are paying to the employee, everything will be mentioned on it, hourly rate or any overtime which the employee has earned over a period of time. Then we have data storage. Data storage is updating one or more databases with the new transactions. After being updated, this data can be further processed and manipulated by other systems. So in ERP systems, we have a database, and everything, whatever we are retrieving the information from the database and sending it to that, it's all going to the central database. Since it's all going to the central database, of course, it helps us in making better decisions for the organization. Then we have document production and reports. It helps us about generating any kind of reports, custom reports, regular reports, or the normal reports which we generate at the end of the month or at the end of the year. So there are various options in it in order to modify the reports, or in order to make any necessary changes to the default reports or the format of it which is available in the system. Now, generating the output reports are in the form of documents or report. It could be a hard copy which could be printed and sent, or it could be a soft copy in the form of the information which usually appears on the screens. Now, results from transaction processing systems can be inputs to another system. So the data which is generated by the TPS can be used by other systems for the for different transactions, etc. Now, typical uses of it is it checks the checks and invoices are being issued, the management of the information, decision support, and compliance with the local and the state regulatory requirements, etc. Where when it's printing the invoices, all the taxes and the withholding tax, government tax, and all those other things are mentioned on it clearly, so that it is clear to the customer that this data, this much amount is going to the government for the taxes and other things, and this is the actual price of the product that they have purchased. Now they are summing up the order processing system for the data entry and input. It would go from a computer for the processing, and the database would be updated, and then the documents and reports would be printed as per the requirements. That's a typical purchasing system where the raw material, packing material, spare and inventory, etc. are sent to the processing order processing, where the employees would issue a purchase order request. The purchase order request would be sent to the supplier so that they can supply the items. Once the items are supplied, an invoice will be issued to the account payable, and the purchase order processing would issue a purchase order, and then the receiving department would detect or would calculate, would check it with the vendor if the supplier has supplied the material or not. So once it is supplied, the receivable department would keep a note of it that the item has been received, and then the receiving notice would be sent to the account payable that we have received the item, the material has been received at the storehouse, and then it would issue the payment to the supplier. So that's how the purchasing system works. Now they are talking about the accounting system. Now accounting system is where the customer would issue the payments and to the account receivable for the shipped orders, etc. There is an asset management as well involved in that. For example, there is account receivable and account payable. These are the two things always in an accounting system. Now account receivable would calculate the amount owned by the customers or paid to the customers to the general ledger, whereas account payable would calculate the amount owned by the company and the amount paid to the company, etc. Now the payroll would calculate the labor cost, and the time cards and payments of the employees would be calculated by the payroll. It would be sent to the general ledger, and it would be getting everything from the budget, that if they have enough amount available to process all those different things. Now TPS applications are order processing systems, which include the order entry, sales, configuration, shipment planning, shipment execution, inventory control, and account receivable. So whenever we talk about order processing, these are the set things which could come to your mind, that these things are handled by order processing systems, since they are all related to the orders. For example, the order entry, sales, shipment, etc. they all fall in the category of order processing systems. Then we have purchasing systems, which include the inventory control, purchase order, purchase processing, receiving, and account receivable or payable. These are the things which are usually controlled by the purchasing systems. Now the accounting systems, they only deal with the accounting like budget, account receivable, payroll, asset management, and general ledger, etc. After that, we have electronic commerce, and in electronic commerce is conducting a business transaction. For example, distribution, buying, selling electronically over the computer networks, primarily on the internet, but also extranets and other corporate networks. So any transactions or anything that we are buying online through any of the websites like eBay or Amazon.com, that is considered as an electronic commerce. Now they are talking about the normal transactions that we do as the consumer. We are buying certain products from these websites, so that would be from the internet. From the extranet means if there are corporate networks and they are providing items to one organization to another, they'll be dealing through their secure channels and they will be selling or purchasing the items from there. Now in that we have three categories: business to consumer, business to business, and consumer to consumer. Business to consumer is a business to consumer allows the customers to place orders with their order processing systems, like a business is selling to the consumers. Now business to business is where the customer is selling to another business, or two businesses are talking to each other. Now C2C is consumer to consumer, allowing the consumer to sell other consumers. For example, eBay is an example of it, and there are other websites through which certain customers are selling the items that they want to sell, their household stuff, etc., on a website, and other customers are also coming to the same website and they are getting or buying the things from there. One thing which is missing over here is G2G, which is a government to government, or G2C is government to consumer. Now we all know e-governance is the use of information and communication technology to simplify the sharing of information, speed up the formally paperwork processes, etc., and to improve the relationship between the citizen and the government. So the government is also using the technology in order to provide a better service to their citizens. Now if two governments are sharing certain information about certain things, it is called G2G, and if government is dealing with the businesses, etc., we call it as G2B, which is government to business. Now we have mobile commerce. Mobile commerce, we call it as m-commerce, relies on the use of wireless devices such as personal digital assistants. We call them PDA also, or mobile phones or smartphones, to perform certain transactions. Now since the technology is growing very fast, now we have 5G networks. Most of the organizations are moving towards the online sales, where the customers are usually buying the stuff using the applications in order to purchase certain products. Now since the trend is increasing very fast, now most of the people tend to use their mobile phones or the applications for that website like Amazon and eBay, etc., in order to finalize the transactions. Some of the websites are even giving you huge discounts if you are using their application in order to purchase the products. Now we have production and supply chain management. ERP production plan process. It draws the information available in the ERP system about the production process, or the overall information about the supply chain and the production. Now sales forecasting is estimating the future customer demand. It means that you'll have to forecast that how much sales is expected in the next quarter. Now all that information is usually collected from the sales data or the records that we have accumulated over the period of time, so that you can forecast that in last year during these months we had this much sales, so it is expected that we are going to have at least this much of sales this quarter as well. The sales and operations plan takes demands and current inventory levels to determine the production for the future demand. So in order to meet the requirements, or in order to meet the market requirements, you'll have to make sure that you have enough inventory and the raw material available to make sure that your supply chain is working and you don't have any problem in the production process of it. Enough raw material should be available to carry on the production process. Then we have demand management, which develops the master production schedule that it would forecast the demand of a product. If it is performing really well, they can calculate the forecasted figure or the demand of that product which is expected to be there in the next 6 months, and they'll increase the production process so that they are able to meet the market requirements. After that, we have detailed scheduling. It means that schedules the production run of each product from one product to the next. So they'll have to make sure that how much time or how much revenue will be required in the production of the of one item, so that they are not ignoring the other products as well. Everything should be ready according to the forecasted demand of the market and should be available to the market before the rush hour comes. The material requirement planning is determining the amount of timing of the raw material, etc., with the suppliers, and the purchasing is the purchases of the raw material to transmit the qualified suppliers so that it is available in the warehouse well ahead of the production process. Now you'll have to make sure these forecasting helps us in getting a rough idea of how much amount or the material would be required. They forecast it and purchase the equipment or the raw material which is required for the production of that period. Now there are certain items which are perishable that if you will keep them in the warehouse or the storehouse over a period of time, the overall quality of it deteriorates. So you'll have to purchase the items in a quantity where you are able to use it in its good health. Now the production is the plans about the details of running and staffing the production operations, etc., where you'll calculate that how much employees would be required. If you'll have to open certain new divisions, what would be the cost required for that, and all those other things are usually calculated in that. Now we have customer relationship management. Customer relationship management helps a company to manage all aspects of customers encounters, for example, marketing, advertising, sales, customer service of sales, programs and retain loyalty programs, etc. So it's all about your relations with the customers and the overall sales and marketing, etc. Now they'll have to take care of the new product lines, and they'll have to devise the strategies or the marketing strategies so that they can hit the market at the right time with the right product, and if there is a proper demand for that product. They'll make sure that the proper marketing campaign is in place to increase the sales. And then the customer service is very important, that if the items are being sold and they are having any problems, what would be the criteria for that in order to return the products or to issue a refund or to provide certain loyalty programs, etc., for the customers who are constantly loyal to your product and they are buying things from your website or a specific product. Now the programs to retain the loyal customers is quite famous these days. Most of the websites or most of the retail shops have their own programs where they have issued the membership cards, or they are using the applications through which, if they are purchasing a product and they have the loyalty program, they'll get huge discounts on the products. Now that's a example of customer relationship management. There is a customer, for example, they'll maintain its personal data, transaction history, click stream of the data, etc., data from the feedback, etc. It would go to customer relationship management, where it would plan for the product development, marketing research, quality control of it, getting the feedback that if a product is faulty or people are having certain issues with it, it would send it to the production house to make the necessary changes. Then it's taking care of the sales and better relationship with the customers. Now we have sales ordering. Set of activities that must be performed to capture and customer sales order, including recording of the item be purchased, setting of sales prices, recording order quantity, determining the total cost of order, including the delivery cost, confirming the cost availability and credit, etc. So they'll have to calculate that how much items shall be purchased, if they are going to stock it in the warehouse or not, what would be the order quantity, how much would be stored where. Because space is money in your warehouse. Wherever you are storing the equipment, you'll have to make sure that you are not overstocking the items, because there should be a management of the warehouse where they need to store other items as well. So they'll only keep the items in the warehouse which are required for a specific moment of time. Once that's done, they'll calculate everything, and then they'll go for the other items which are available or which are hot in stock as well. Now, since all of these things are being handled by the ERP systems, they help us in calculating all those things. Now, many small to medium enterprises are turning to ERP software to make it easier for their large customers to place orders within a limited time. Now, they'll have to calculate how much items should be required. Whereas if we are talking about the medical ERP systems, their requirements of managing stocks, etc., is quite limited, where the expiry date of the products is there, etc. So they maintain a minimum quantity of it, and then they keep on ordering the items which are required over a period of time. And the last slide for today is international issues associated with the operational systems. It's the challenges that must be met by the operational systems of a multinational company. So if a company is operating at different parts of the world, they'll have to calculate, or they'll have to consider lots of different things, which is according to a country's rules and regulations and requirements. Now there are different languages and cultures, etc., which they must take care of, disparities in the information system infrastructure, the laws and the custom rules, etc. Then there would be multiple currencies, so they'll have to calculate the amount, calculate the actual cost of the product in that currency, and the ERP software vendors have meet these challenges in order to make sure that the system is capable to understand all these different things in different languages, and then it's even calculating the taxation and other things according to the rules and regulations of that specific country. Now, since ERP systems are capable enough to capable enough or are usually built in different languages, so consider that if an ERP system is used in a country where English is not accepted, or they prefer using the systems in their own language, the systems or ERP are available in the customized languages where the interfaces and everything will be available to them in the language which they can easily understand. Disparities in information system infrastructure is about the infrastructure. For example, in certain countries where internet is not powerful enough, they might face certain problems. So that thing should be considered, that the system could go a bit slow and it should be implemented in a way that it's not affecting the overall calculation of the sales and other things in that specific country. So that's about the operational systems and enterprise resource planning systems. This is just the summary of the chapter where enterprise systems ensures that the information can be shared across all businesses. Transaction processing systems talks about the records and the fundamentals of business operations. Batch processing is accumulated transactions over a period of time. Online transaction processing is a process of each transaction immediately. Now, transaction processing cycle include data collection, data editing, data correction, manipulation, storage, and document production. Many types of transaction processing systems support order processing, purchasing, accounting, and business functions. Now, enterprise resource planning is a set of integrated programs that manage companies' vital businesses operations in a multi-site or a global organization. Customer relationship management helps the company to manage all aspects of customer encounters, and enterprise systems of a multinational company must meet many challenges.